Hey, it's John King with Summit Funding, and I want to share with you a little bit of detail behind the question everybody's asking right now. When are values coming back down again? When are prices of oil and gas and food coming back down again? Because this is unsustainable. Nobody can afford to pay for the goods today, and the economy is about to collapse. Let me give you some factual information behind this before you start running around like Chicken Little with your head cut off. So here's what we're dealing with, and I'm going to move quickly because this is really simple if I boil it down to the most basic understanding. This is the consumer price index. This is inflation. So this is basically how much have the cost of goods increased year over year. And what we're seeing is going back to 1985, it's been averaging between 3 and 5%. For the last 10 years, it's been closer to below 2%. And really in the last couple of years, very low. And now it's skyrocketed. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, the price of goods are going out of control and nobody can afford to do anything. Well, then they're saying, when's it going to come back down? When are we going to see prices drop to where they were? Prices never dropped to where they were, ever. So this is the same chart, but this is the increase in prices. So what you're seeing here is the change. How much did prices change from last year to this year? Well, they only went up prices actually went down a little bit in 2010. But the reality is prices always increase. Even in the late 70s where we had significant inflation and then we fixed it, the difference is this line was pointing upwards a lot faster. The rate of the increase in the cost of goods was moving quicker. So when inflation is low, we're over here, it's stable because the prices are staying stable. And then inflation takes off. And then we have some stability, and then it takes off, and then we have some stability, and it takes off. Oop, here's deflation. So this is the price of goods have dropped, and now we're seeing really high inflation. The price of goods is taking off. This is a very steep line, okay? But what everybody says is, first of all, when are prices coming back down? They never come back down. What happens is your wages go up. So this is the average wages. I'll get rid of me right here. So you can see average hourly earnings of all employees, and this chart goes back to 2006. And all you're seeing is the same thing, which is that wages are going up and up and up. Now, wages spiked in 2020, and then they came back down a little bit. But we are basically seeing wages continue to increase. Now, maybe your wage has not increased, which is what people are freaking out about is, hey, I can't afford this. Housing prices are significantly above what they should be priced at, and people can't afford their mortgage payment. How is this sustainable? Let me show you how it is sustainable, because first of all, there's no should price any of this. What we need to look at first of all is the comparison of your average hourly earnings with inflation. So average hourly earnings, which I showed you right here, inflation, which I showed you right here, put the two together on one chart. What you notice, the red line of inflation moves up and down, up and down. So you see inflation moving a fair amount, but you see average hourly earnings continuing to improve. There were times, especially back in 2008, where inflation rose faster than earnings. But what are you noticing right now? Right now, what you have is since 2014, 2015, we've seen low inflation. Inflation has grown less than your income has. Now, 2020 was an anomaly, but what you're noticing is that inflation is increasing a lot, and our earnings are not increasing as much. But here's the thing that I want you to really understand. This is so let me go back here for a second. You have you still are making more money than what inflation is going up. Yes, inflation is catching up, but there were periods in the past where inflation was greater than the growth of our income. But our income is growing faster than inflation even today. Let me apply that to a mortgage payment. So this chart shows mortgage payments compared with your percentage of your disposable income. So how much money are you making that you have available after taxes, and how much of that is going towards a mortgage payment? What you notice is we hit the peak of our mortgage payment as a percentage of disposable income as a nation was in 2007, right before the crash. So everybody's saying, hey, there's no way these home prices are sustainable because nobody can afford a monthly payment. That's not true. Now, maybe your personal economy says that you can't afford the payment. Maybe your personal monthly payment is hard because payments have gone up and your household is in such a position that you can't afford the payment. And in a micro level, that's all that matters is your personal economy. But the big picture of the economy, we are spending way less of our disposable income towards a mortgage payment right now. And when you look, it's fallen significantly because interest rates have dropped so much from 2007 until 2020. Now, what you're noticing right now is an increase again. It's an uptick recently. we're still spending a very, very low amount of our income towards our mortgage payments, towards our debts. So for people to say, John, this is not sustainable. John, there's no way that we can sustain housing prices and housing payments because nobody can afford it. That's just not true. The statistics prove you can afford the payment. You may not want to. You may have lifestyle issues that have taken off because you're used to having a really, really low payment, but we are not in 2007. We're not dealing with a true affordability crisis like we were in 2007. The last thing I want to tell you is housing prices themselves over time have always gone up over any 10-year period. And so in the short run, we've had drops. You buy a house in the end of 2014 and it's worth, the average price is $298, and in early 2015 it's dropped to $289. In 2017 it's $338 and it's dropped 6 months later to $315. So that's a pretty sizable drop from $338 to $315,000. But it came right back. And so what we've had is a huge increase recently, but no different than any kind of increase that we've seen in the past. And what you notice is these gray bars are recessions. After recessions or during recessions, interest rates go down and housing prices start moving up. 2008 was the only recession where housing prices dropped. Every other recession, we had a little bit of a blip and then they came right back out significantly. Little bit of a blip and came back out. Little bit of a blip and came back out. So recessions, here's an increase in price in recessions. Little bit of a blip and we came back out. Recessions do not mean lower house prices. Let me say that again. Recessions do not mean lower house prices, and we can afford the monthly payments as a nation. Now, I get that in individual pockets it's different. I get in individual communities and individual families, but I talk to a lot of buyers right now who can afford a monthly payment. They're just afraid prices are going to drop. They're afraid that I talked to 2 people in the last 24 hours that make almost $200,000 a year, each of these families, and they're worried prices are going to drop, and that's why they're not going to buy. It's that worry that's causing the problem, and the media is spurring that on. The reality is mortgage payments are affordable, house prices are sustainable because our wages keep going up, and nobody is talking about that fact, and so that's the reality of the situation. Hope this helps. Have a great day.